morning. It's Saturday, July 1st, the start of the 4th of July weekend. And the weekend has started with a boom and a bang because the Supreme Court has ruled against affirmative action. Now, I have never been a fan of affirmative action, but I recognize it as having been necessary to create the diverse environments that the colleges were after, to give students from, let's call them the lesser districts of the country, a chance to have a better life. This case falls in the same category as the abortion rights case. This is not a case that really needed to be executed. This is a case that the conservatives in this country wanted to have, and I'm against that. So there was really no good reason to overturn affirmative action. And there was no good reason to overturn the abortion rights either, when 60 and 70% of the people in the country are in favor of those rules. But the Supreme Court is a very conservative court. And they're not judging anything by the laws. They're judging it by their feelings and their upbringing. And so I think that is wrong. We all know that the Constitution doesn't state anything about these particular cases. It's interpretation of the words in the Constitution that constantly get twisted. And in 20 or 30 years from now, with a different setup in the court, the same words will mean something entirely different. But getting back to the situation of affirmative action, colleges have to have a methodology to bring into their universe students who would be left on the sidelines if not for something like affirmative action. And I will tell you what is really, really wrong with the educational setup that the colleges have to deal with. They have to deal with 50 different states that have education that is good in many, many states, very good in other states, and piss poor in an awful lot of states also. So how is it possible for a college to decide the quality of the students that they want at their institution when they are forced to accept students from states where the educational systems haven't produced the quality of student that these colleges would like to get? What if that became a criteria for selecting students? We'll only select students for our college from a particular state because they have a higher educational standard and they spend more money educating their students. Maybe that's it. It shouldn't be race, maybe. It should be educational standards by state. So it wouldn't make any difference what your race or your religion was. You came from this state where it's known to have a piss-poor educational system. Or maybe if somebody does well in a state with a piss-poor educational system, they should be looked at a little differently by the college. But it's quite possible that if a state has a piss-poor educational system, you could be a mediocre student and do well in that system because it's so piss poor. So how is it possible that colleges can overcome that particular situation in this country? The educational standards that are so different in many parts of this country from other parts of the country. So here's a question that needs to be answered. Why isn't the quality of education at a particular state considered as part of the criteria for getting into a college? What kind of uproar would occur if colleges decided that certain states had students that were really not qualified for them, but they could get into their schools if that student, who supposedly was a good student in a poor state, had to take a special entrance exam? Do you think that would go over well? Do you think that people wouldn't be screaming about discrimination? Why are they picking on the kids from Alabama? They're doing it specifically because Alabama has a large proportion of blacks. works, and that's why they're testing. Are you kidding me? So when we look at affirmative action, it took place for a reason, and it was a good reason. We were trying to diversify. We were trying to do the right thing for the people in this country. We weren't trying to exclude anybody. If you were qualified, you could go to this school. We wanted a mix. We wanted a mix of that represented the national makeup of this country. We didn't want any situation that ended up having a predominantly white school, or a predominantly Asian school, or maybe a predominantly black school. We didn't want to have that. We wanted to have a diverse system. So they put affirmative action into place, and race became a piece of the action. Now, I don't believe that race has a big factor in how smart people are. I think there are smart people of every shape, size, color, any way you want to look at it. We have many, many smart people, and they all look different. But now, because we have done away with affirmative actions, that doesn't mean that colleges will not find a way to get the diverse population that they want at their school. And maybe it will be something that will be challenged again because of what they did. No matter what happens, there will always be a group of people who are dissatisfied. And many of those dissatisfied people will not look at their own environment and recognize the fact that in the state that they live in, they are not getting a good education, because that's prevalent around this country. The states control the educational systems, and many states don't have or don't want to spend the money that is required to turn out quality students. So think about that. Think about the fact that we do away with affirmative action, which will not affect the way colleges set their things up. The schools will be smart enough to overcome the destruction of affirmative action. But their methodology may not be suitable to many in the world, because somebody will say you're not getting enough of this type of student or that type of student because your methodology is all wrong. Are institutions of higher education going to have to submit some kind of diversity criteria for the government to approve? How about that? So I leave you with the craziness that has come about because of the end of affirmative action. Have a great day. Bye.